All right, this is day two. As I stated yesterday, I've been striving to do a open-mindedness video series where we will talk about Islam, Muslim, followers of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and demystify everything that we think we know about it. So yesterday we talked about how the term, what God does Muslims believe in? Is it different from the God of the Jews or the Christians? And hopefully you could backtrack and check out that video and know that we cleared up that misconception, hopefully, if it be the will of Allah. But today we want to talk about what is Islam? What is a Muslim? Most people don't know, and they associate it with stereotypes, with things that they've seen in the media. And of course there's an all-out war and campaign against Islam in the media. So your interpretation or perception of Islam should never come from the media. Let's start with what is Islam? By definition, first of all, as we stated yesterday, Islam is another Arabic term. Okay, the Arabic term Islam means total submission to do the will of Allah, to do the will of God, for those who may still have a uncomfortability with using the term Allah. So total submission to do the will of God is in no way, shape, or form against the practices of other religions. Islam is one of those forces that should unite people, but the unity comes from understanding. So in English, you would say total obedience or total submission to the will of God, but in Arabic, you can encapsulate all of that in one word by saying Islam. Okay? To be a Muslim is one who submits his will or her will to do the will of God. So if we break it down, and even if you go into the biblical context, the biblical scriptures, right? If you break it down all the way to its most simplest form and forget titles for a minute, forget Muslim, forget Islam, forget Christian, forget Jew, forget all of those terms and titles that divide us. But if you go to the most simplest form and start with the beginning, quote-unquote, story, right, of Adam and Eve in the garden. If you boil all of that allegory, all of these animals talking, all of this fruit being eaten, all of these trees with knowledge of good and evil and all this other stuff, if you break all of that down, the Garden of Eden is a very simple story. The Garden of Eden simply says, God, the supreme being, Allah for us, in the Arabic, is giving you two choices. The two choices is, one, you can obey me and understand that I know what's best for you. Or two, you can be disobedient and rebel against what it is that I have commanded or asked of you to do. And if we boil all of that down to it, the religion of Adam in the garden was obedience to God. After the prophets and servants of God and the messengers that's sent to people, after they pass along, then we get into titles and trying to label things and trying to, factionalize what it is that prophet or that messenger or that servant of God taught. But in reality, it's the function that's most important. And the function is obedience to God. Even in my Christian background, my desire, my heart was to be obedient to God. I'm sure that the Jews can say the same for those who truly practice Judaism, and say that their heart is in a place to be obedient to God. So obedience to God is a unifying force, and this is what a Muslim is, and this is what Islam means. Some people will tell you that Islam means peace. But the peace that's achieved in Islam is achieved by our obedience. When you're obedient to the one that created you, to the one that made you. When you're in obedience, you're in perfect peace because now everything is in sync and unison with one another. So Islam and Muslim are not taboo terms and words. They're just misunderstood. You should not have any problem with a person calling themselves Muslims. You should not have a problem with any person saying that they practice Islam once you understand the definitions and not the labels and stigmas and stereotypes that this enemy has given to the term Islam. As a follower of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, we also call ourselves Christians, because this term of Christian is not a bad term. A Christian means one who is striving to be crystallized into oneness into oneness, with Christ. That's an excellent term. There's no problem with that term of Christian, so we are Christians. But at the same time, we understand that Muslim is a sacred and holy title as well. Therefore, we are striving to be obedient to the creator of the heavens and the earth, the supreme being, Allah. All right, so hopefully this clears up the misconceptions about what Islam and Muslim is. And let me just say this as I close. The reason we use so much Arabic, which is probably one of the things that causes a lot of confusion for people because they don't take the time to really understand Arabic. But the reason we use it so much is because the tongue that I'm translating this message in is English. English is the language of people from England. England, I'm sure you know, is a country on what continent? Europe. So why is a black man speaking a European language? Now, there's much history that we can go into, but for sake of time, because I wanted these videos to be brief, we know that there are languages that we spoke prior to speaking English, right, which is a European dialect, or a European language, rather. And then for my Spanish brothers and so-called, right, they speak Spanish. Spanish is from Spain, another European country. So why are our people of Central and South America speaking the language of another European continent? And the reality is that these languages are of our oppressors, right? The ones who colonized and conquered our people. So because they took us into slavery at some point, we began to take on their characteristics, their ideologies, their religions, their gods, their languages. So in the Nation of Islam, we're getting reacquainted with the languages that we once knew. And if you don't believe that, there's actually a Christian that bears witness because he actually was open-minded enough to do the research in Alex Haley. Alex Haley is a Christian. But when Alex Haley made his movie Roots, you can look at the subtitles on the screen and you hear Kunta Kinte saying Allahu Akbar and other Arabic terms, which simply mean God is the greatest. But why did he incorporate that in the movie Roots? And why did he incorporate Kunta Kinte praying in the Salat positions, which is Islamic prayer? And I forgot the other character's name, but he's trying to get him up. He's like, no, you can't do that here. Master don't want that. Why did he incorporate that as a Christian? Because when he did his research and he was open-minded enough to go back and do the follow-up, he came to the realization that, yes, we did at one point speak Arabic. Many of our people were Muslims prior to coming here during slavery. And Salat and prayer and all these other things were a part of our culture. So now we're being reacquainted with that culture. And hopefully these open-minded video series can clear up a lot of our misunderstandings and reacquaint us willingly with our history and our former cultures. So thank you all for this time. I look forward to making another video tomorrow morning. Be looking out for these every day as we clear up these misconceptions. Peace.